Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Analytical Amateurs, the show where a bunch of unprofessionals pretend to be professional. I'm Malcolm Tabber. I'm here with Triple M. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Let's do this again.
Yeah, so to clarify what Triple M means by that, here's a funny story. We have recorded this entire podcast already. However, due to the power of technical difficulties, the recording is not good, and we more or less just lost. It's just not good. And so
it's his fault. You can blame him.
Yes, I take full blame. Me and my technology are taking full blame for this one. This is an oof. This is an amateur oopsie. We had this mistake already, actually, on the podcast before, and I thought I had fixed it because, we went a good number of podcasts without any technical errors, so I just assumed it was okay. But now it's here again. I think I have fixed it this time to make it so that this sounds good and we don't have to re-record this again. Either way. The context is that we've already done this, so we might sound like we already know what we're gonna say, and that's because we mostly do. Yeah, but we're still gonna deliver our points as if we don't ish, and hopefully this turns out well, and we don't have this issue in the future, and we can go from being analytical amateurs to analytical moderates. I don't know what you'd call middle class, C tier, B tier analytical people.
Stop trying.
Yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to move on now. Okay. Either way, the point is we're doing a podcast. The podcast today is for The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. This is a first for us because this is our first set of video games. We usually do movies, but now we're doing video games because these are two very narrative heavy video games. And so you can approach them as movies anyways. Either way, we are discussing these two video games based on their story. We're not really discussing gameplay and technical stuff, just like the main narrative of them. And by two, I mean one. To be honest, I'm going to be honest, we were mostly doing this for The Last of Us Part 2, because that's the big one that everyone wants to talk about. The Last of Us Part 1 is more or less just like filler to get there for our discussion. By
the way,
yes.
Let me say two things. I said this last time. I said everything last time. What am I fucking talking about? We here on this podcast love The Last of Us 2. It is my second favorite game of all time. So if that offends you and you don't like that, then you have two options. One, you can stay and you can listen to us participate in a rousing discussion about why we think the game is good. And if you still have problems with what we say, you can leave a comment down below. Or you can click off and be all mad because you don't like to hear opinions that are different than yours. In that case, we don't want you here. So, let's talk about these games. Let's do it. Let's get it on.
Yeah, here we go. We're bringing out all the hot takes for this one. All right. So, to start off, the one that everybody loves, The Last of Us. What does there say? It's a perfect story on all fronts, I think is how the best way to describe it. It is a good, I don't want to say simple, but straightforward story.
It's linear.
Yeah, but in a good way.
Okay.
It tells a good story.
Yeah, the second game is very linear too, but I think this game just has a different feel to it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot... How to phrase it? See, I'm having difficulties with it again, dude. It's just... I'm not insulting the game. But it is quite simple. It's point A to point B, over and done with. Whereas the second one is a bit more complex, I think. But this game is not, bad. It's really good. It blew everybody away when it came out. Nobody had ever played a zombie game that was as good as this.
Yeah,
you can
obviously
even call them zombies.
To start off, obviously the setting of this story is that there's a big pandemic that breaks out and causes a lot of people to be mutated and the world to go into ruin. Obviously, it's a good word where I picked this over everything, obviously, for obvious real world reasons. Right now,
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Is
there something going on in the world right now?
No, you may not have heard of this, but yeah, obviously it makes sense for what's going on in our world right now. Is a good parallel. However, the story takes place in 2033, so it's 13 years too late. Either way, I think it's a good parallel. We're just one step away from people turning into fungal zombies. So when that happens, I called it. Let's just say that. Either way.
Dude, I'm ready. I think I said this last time, but I'm ready, man. I own so many swords.
Ugh,
I own so many swords.
that'll be fun.
I'm just ready.
Get into flamethrower some zombies. Yeah. Either way, I think one thing I want to note before we get into like characters and stuff is obviously just the environment. Something that I always liked about this game was just how it looked. Usually like apocalypse stories, everything just sucks and it's gloomy and it's depressing. But no, this world is not
Like Fallout.
gloomy. It's not. It's just like this open, vibrant, nature-infested, ruined world, and it's like something beautiful about this weird, like abandoned landscape. Like you're looking at this like. A lot of the environments we have now, like, a shopping mall, in any other game, you'd just be like, oh, it's just a shopping mall. When you see, like, a shopping mall abandoned by this world filled with zombies, with plants growing out of it, you're just like, that looks very interesting and exquisite. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm weird, but I thought that was a very nice technical touch.
This was something I was going to touch on with the second game, but I'll talk about it briefly. Every environment in these games, you don't really appreciate it until, like, I was playing the second one, and I hadn't ever done this before, but I stopped, and I was like, dude, I'm just, like, in an abandoned, this sounds repetitive, but I actually was in the abandoned shopping mall section of the second game. I was like, it's really weird how, like, they crafted this set piece to feel extremely natural, but also work perfectly with the gameplay.
Yeah,
like every room flows in and out of each other, and it's not like stilted. You don't have to try and like figure out the traversal. It just works, and there's something about it. It works really well.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't describe this as cinematography because this isn't a film, but it honestly is a really good just technical design, and that I think not a lot of people appreciate. So just wanted to highlight that. Other than that, there's a strong emphasis on nature overall, and I'll get to that later. But I think something important, obviously, is just the way this story is told. It's a really good story, just about a character and their I guess relationships, love, family, and whatnot. You have Joel, this battle-hardened, very cynical person. Homie.
He's a homie.
Joel, the very cynical, battle-hardened survivor who ends up having his heart opened by this one person Ellie, who he didn't think he could get along with, obviously, due to things that happened in his life, after what happened to his daughter. And you see, as the journey goes along, he becomes more attached to her, and you really start to feel for these characters. Ellie as a whole, I really didn't care about Ellie at first, and I thought she was going to get annoying, but she actually really did grow on me. She really represents the youth of the world, because Joel represents the old world back when everything was normal, and Ellie is like the new youth growing up in this apocalyptic environment. So you see her reacting to things like an ice cream truck, like she doesn't think an ice cream truck is real. She's all like, "What is this?"
There's a great part in the second game where they come across like a Comic-Con setup, and they're like, what is this?
Yeah, they're like, whoa, what's going on? Stuff. And it makes you really appreciate the little things in your own world, and you're like, wow, imagine years from now how people will react to these things we just see as the norm and stuff.
And I guess for Ellie in the first game, she doesn't really have much of a character.
Yeah, she's
and
more
I guess that's fine because
naive and stuff.
I guess that's fine because it's Jill's story, but I would have liked if they kind of developed her a bit more. They did give her her own DLC.
Yeah, and she does get more to do by near the end of the game. You see that she's kind of grown into her own with the second game.
Yeah, but see, that just seems like her whole character. She's just the entire character just revolves around her becoming a badass.
Oh, true.
And that's pretty much it. And I like the second game because it fleshes her out a bit more. But we're talking about the first game, and I keep trying to jump ahead, so I'm sorry.
It's all right. Other than that, the infected as a whole, the monsters that you obviously fight, they were a decent enough threat, I suppose. I will say on a story level, I wish we got to know a little more about them. We don't really know much about the virus outside of the opening scene where it's just addressed in some news briefing. And I guess I just wish we could know more about what they are, because there's only one cutscene in which the character Sam asks a question what do you think the infected are like? Do you think they're still alive underneath that infection? And Ellie just dismisses him no, they're dead, and that's it. And there's no question about it. And I'm are you sure? Yes.
I personally disagree. I think that the best zombie stories work really well when it's just you wake up and it's happening. and it's like, okay, this is a thing we have to deal with, and it's never like explained because the audience doesn't really care. Oh, okay, sorry, I'm not insulting you. I just personally, my favorite zombie story is The Walking Dead, and not the TV show. Fuck the TV show. The comic. Damn. But yeah, you never really learn what happens or why it happens. It just happens, and then the story evolves from that, and that's what I like. But I can understand where you're coming from. It's perfectly natural to, question that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I feel like since the story just really delves into like morality a lot, like you have characters killing other characters and having like different problems with it, I feel like you could address that at least once. But the story still flows well regardless of it, I say. Other than that, the world itself is also not very fleshed out, and initially I had a problem with that, but overall I'm okay with it because the story's not about like the bigger world. It's about like these set characters like Joel and Ellie in the world. So you don't really have to know exactly what's going on in like other nations and whatnot. Still, I feel like you could address it at least once. What else is there to touch on? Like I said, Joel is a pretty straightforward character. It's interesting how you will play as him, and you'll obviously do a lot of heinous things, but you still do like support and care about Joel, obviously, because you feel bad about him, and you understand like why he does these heinous things. It's a very interesting and another good example of like how to make a good character who's not necessarily a good person. And believe me, we will get into that with the sequel. I really like characters like that, how you can like really sympathize and understand them, even though they're doing things that any other person would say this is bad. But you understand that Joel has no other choice, like he's trying to survive and stuff throughout the story. And he's also just cool, he's just a cool guy, so you really root for him. Of course, there is the ending. That is the big crutch of this game and stuff. But the ending is in which Joel finally gets Ellie to their destination. They have a chance to save humanity. But however, it will come at the cost of killing Ellie. And so Joel saves Ellie, kills the doctors who were supposed to save her, and then he lies to her. And this is a really controversial ending now. But obviously, a lot of people are asking, did he do the right thing? If you ask me, in my completely humble opinion, I wanted to say it, damn it. But yeah, in my completely humble opinion, no. Joel did not do the right thing.
And we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk a lot about that because a lot of people seem to think that he did do the right thing. And then they always say, they always say, that's what I would have done. And I'm like, well, you see, then you would do the wrong thing too. Just because it's what you would do
doesn't make it.
I don't want to sound like that guy and bring back this phrase from everyone's childhood. But if your best friend jumped off of a bridge and you did it too, that doesn't make it the right thing to do. It just makes it the thing you did. You know? And it's like that's an example of you empathize with Joel. And you understand why he did what he did, but it was the wrong thing. And I think that people need to recognize that, or else they're defending a bad person.
Mm-hmm. So it's another example of like a bad person who's a good character, I I'd say. And so I really really love him as a character, even if he did the wrong thing. And people are starting to get that confused. But like we've been saying a lot, we'll get into it with the sequel. Other than that, there was also DLC for this game, which just fleshed out like Ellie's life before she met Joel, like with her friend, who she spends like one last day with. And it's nice. You get to see Ellie really bonding with her friend. And it really has a tragic ending. It also mixes some of like Ellie taking care of Joel in there. So that was some interesting filler, I guess. It really did flesh out her character.
It's weird to me. Sorry, I hate to cut you off. I keep cutting you off. My bad. I looked this up. Apparently, a lot of people don't like Left Behind. They don't like the DLC.
Really? I thought it was nice.
And I can't really figure out why.
I thought it was crazy.
I hate to get into this so early, but I think some of it might have to do with the fact that they dropped the fact that she's gay.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to like put that much stock in that. But I mean, come on. We saw the kind of feedback that characters with representation got from the second game. So maybe just a lot of people are like, wait, I thought she was cute, but now she's gay? Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't know why people are trying to flirt with her when she was like 14 in that game, but that's their problem. Anyways, I thought it was a good DLC. I really liked the Mortal Kombat bit in there. That was funny.
It's like a 3-hour long little fun little segment at the end. You know. You know what's weird is that nobody ever talks about for this game, but apparently everybody loved it. Apparently the multiplayer is like fantastic. And it's like, I know this is so off topic, but like, I was surprised. Even the people who liked the second game wanted the multiplayer to come back. And I am not a multiplayer guy. I don't play much multiplayer. So I was very confused. I'm like, this is a single player story, and it won like 30 Game of the Year awards for being a single player story. But all people talk about is the multiplayer now. I didn't understand that. But
that's some irony.
I don't know. Maybe people like it. Yeah.
Like I said, there's not much to chew on here, you know. Characters. The game overall has a very nice...
the kind of thing that it's built on. Yeah,
yes.
Let's just skip over that. Oops,
characters. The game has a nice ensemble of characters outside of Joel and Ellie that they interact with. And you see how everyone is... You have different types of survivors that you come across in this apocalypse. You have Tess, who actually has some morality left in her. Like, she knows she's doing the wrong thing, but she sees a chance of, like, hope with Ellie. And if she had not been bitten, she would have done everything to get Ellie where she is. So some of Tess lives on in Joel. You've got Henry and Sam, two brothers who are desperate to survive no matter what. And then the fact that Sam... And you have that emotional scene where Sam turns out to that he got infected, and Henry just loses it because of it. You've got...
Yeah.
Well, you don't like that scene?
No, it's sad. That's why I said yeah.
Okay. I thought you were
like, no, it's sad. I mean, like, I give this game shit, but it is a good game. I just like the second one more. But this game has really good emotional beats and moments of quiet contemplation. It does the cut to black thing a lot.
Yeah, and it actually works a lot.
After Henry's death, there's no reflection, there's no reaction from the two characters.
No,
it's
just a cutaway.
A quick cut to black, and then it's like 2 months later. It's really it's well done.
You got other supporting characters like Joel's brother Tommy, who represents like pretty much the complete other side of him.
Tommy.
Yeah, like
I love Tommy.
Joel was
so
all
much.
about.
He's just a Chad.
Joel was all about like being a cynical survivor, and Tommy didn't want that. He wanted to be a better person, so he went on to join the Fireflies and everything. You've got.
Funny how that worked out.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But you've got him. You've got. I was just about to talk about someone else, and I forgot who it was. Oh, his wife.
Bill.
Bill too.
Or Maria. Let's do Maria.
Who's really stern and really is a good support for Tommy. Shows how you can have someone to love in this world without like losing yourself. And I think that really contributes to Joel opening up more to Ellie. You've got Bill, who's just a full-on like loner cynic and everything. Who wants
huge douchebag. Total.
Yeah, he's basically a worse version of what Joel was at the start and everything. And you can see that he like buries like his emotions in just like cynicism. Like when his partner dies, he just acts like he doesn't care, but you can see that he's really just trying to bury that. Overall, just a really good ensemble cast of different types of survivors. You've got Adam the cannibal. You've got the hunters and all that. Like you can see.
Adam? What's wrong with you?
What's his name? Not Adam.
David.
David. David. I knew it was a Bible name. I don't know why I thought Adam. David. It's David. Okay, I knew it was like a biblical name. It's
because
David.
I remember that. That was one of the plot twists that threw me for a loop as a kid. Because I played this when I was like a young kid. I was like, you can't trust people? What? I feel so betrayed. My innocence. But yeah, like that. I was like, oh, okay, this guy's cool. Oh, he's gonna eat me. Oh, well, all
right. So overall, that's like we said, it's a really good, straightforward story with a lot of good elements and just everything you need to make a good story. I don't know what else to tell you. Experience the game if you haven't. It is very good and straightforward. And where the real meat and potatoes start is the game that we're about to discuss next, The Last of Us Part 2. So any other lingering thoughts for Last of Us 1? Before we go on?
No, it's a good game. Short and sweet. I enjoy it very much.
All right, then. And now we are on to The Last of Us Part 2. The divisive one. Disclaimer, we have a rule. The rule is it's just a movie. But in this case, it's just a video game. We avoid drama and like personal gripes and whatnot when we're discussing content. However, this is the one exception.
There's some things you can't talk about without bringing up.
This is like the one exception where we will slightly delve into the drama, because this game was wrapped up in drama before it even came out. So, yeah, just a warning on that one. Either way, we're going to start delving into it. Like we said at the beginning, we actually do really enjoy this game. Because I remember with everyone it came out, or before it came out, everyone was saying this game sucks. It's horrible. And I was like, wow, like all these people agree it sucks? How could you fail this badly? And then I actually went and experienced it, and I was like, wow, that was actually really good. I don't know what people are talking about. Like, what's everyone on about? I was so confused. I was like, where's the drama coming from? It's actually really good.
We discovered this problem when first recording. This is a hard game to talk about. We were like, maybe we'll do the drama first. Maybe we'll talk about the controversy first. But the controversy is so wrapped up in the game and story itself, so there's no real way to break it up. But I remember what we did, just briefly, for anyone who doesn't know, what happened is that a disgruntled Naughty Dog employee who was terminated, I believe, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, was very upset that he was terminated, because, it sucks to get fired. And he or she released basically just a basic plot synopsis of The Last of Us Part 2, which was Joel gets killed by the daughter of a person that you kill in the first game, in the first hour, and then you are forced to play as her, and then in the leaks, they actually led you to believe that person killed Ellie, and you played as Abby, who is that person, for the rest of the game. And everybody was mad, and I was mad because without actually experiencing the game and only having to go on, Joel dies and then you play as his murderer for the rest of the game, that kind of was annoying. So I was ready to write this game off, and I'm quite ashamed to say that I wouldn't have played it unless if I didn't get a free copy from one of my friends. But I think the leaks are kind of funny because it's like parallel to the story itself. Both the leaks lack context, much like a lot of the characters in the story act the way they act because they lack context of the situation.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it. But
yeah, because the entire story, the entire 30-hour story, is much different than a few bullet points on a page. And yeah, I mean, she got it right. Joel dies in the first hour, and you do play as his murderer, but it's a lot. It's more complex than that.
Yeah. And
everyone that I talk to that hates this game, I always ask, how far did you get? Right? And I always get the same like amalgamation of answers. I always get like either I didn't play it, which is I just disregard their opinion. I'm sorry. The only way to properly appreciate a piece of media is if you've experienced it yourself. Otherwise, you're just reciting what you've heard. So there's I didn't play it, which is stupid. And then there's I quit after Joel died. I'm like, oh, okay, so you quit before the story even started. That's the prologue. And then some people are like, I quit when you started playing as Abby. I'm like, wow.
And then you missed the whole context of her character.
Yeah, no, you miss why she did what she did. It's So and then I know my good friend Hugo has been looking up a lot of crazy, fun little rants that people go on to defend their hatred of this game.
I've seen a lot of controversy on both sides. It's so crazy. literally had someone telling me I'm just not allowed to defend the game because they hate it.
You legally aren't.
Like, it's just like,
legally,
you just can't defend it because it's
person.
bad. And I'm like, okay, but that's like your opinion, fam. But I think the place to obviously start with all of this is with the elephant in the room that we've already mentioned, the death of Joel Miller. So in the game, as everyone should know by now, even if they haven't played it, Joel is killed.
Spoilers.
Oh, spoilers, of course. Joel is killed by a character named Abby. So obviously everyone is mad about this point. And they're saying that this was like a bad way to handle his death. Like, you just killed him off without him barely getting to do anything. You know, he didn't deserve this and everything. And he was too good to die like this and everything. Now look, I love Joel. He's a great guy. Or he's not a great guy. He's a great character. And that's exactly my point. Joel is a great character, but he is not a good person. And in my most humble opinion, Joel didn't deserve shit. I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest. Joel did not deserve a quote-unquote honorable death or anything.
A lot of people who are angry about it are angry for a lot of the wrong reasons. The first reason, they always try and defend that Joel, they always try to defend the fact that Joel saved Ellie in the exchange of a cure. They always say, oh, there's no way that the Fireflies could have distributed it, but there's no way that they actually would have made it. And I'm like, okay, here, for the purpose of the story, there would have been a cure. That's the point. But also,
like, even if it's not, like, even if it's true, like, even if they couldn't distribute it, the fact that he didn't even give them a chance and he killed innocent people is still bad in its own right.
Like, and then it's like that's fine, whatever. For the point of the story, there would have been a cure. But also, people forget, Abby does not track Joel down because he doomed humanity. She tracks him down because he killed her father.
Yeah.
In like cold blood, he murdered her father.
Yes. Abby was driven to angry actions by the death of someone she loved, just like Joel was, and no one's realizing this.
And just like Ellie was.
Yes.
The same way Ellie is. It's a cycle of violence.
And we'll definitely get back to that because that's a big theme
of
it.
I mean, I killed him brutally in my playthrough. I fucking gunned him down with a machine gun. I didn't know who he was. So
that's the
I
point.
certainly deserved the golf club.
And that's the thing. Like, everyone's saying,
flamethrower ammo, I would have burned him to death.
Like, everyone is
how I played that game.
Everyone's saying like that. Like, they wanted Abby to be someone important. They're like, okay, maybe Abby kills him, but she should have at least been someone important. I'm like, that doesn't really matter. Like, the whole, like, Abby says, like, when Joel's like, who are you? She says, guess. And the whole point of that line is that Joel has committed so many atrocities and done so many horrible things and harmed so many people that she could be anybody. Like, and that's the whole point. Like, it's a reflection of just how bad how dark of a path he's gone down. And Abby is literally a manifestation of, like, the dark path he left behind coming back to get him. Like, the past comes back to haunt you in the form of a muscular woman with a golf club. I missed that joke. The past comes back to haunt you in the form of a muscular woman with a golf club. But
it's funny. On the date we were recording this is just a little side note. My friend texted me in a flurry. He was very upset. He's like, Logan, the cyberpunk plot got leaked. And I said, Luke, how many golf clubs are there? What are we looking at here?
Goodness. What out of context stuff can we hate on this time? Goodness.
Okay, so I want to keep talking about how angry they got at Joel's death. There's another reason. They're like, he dies super early on. I'm like, yes, because this is not his story anymore.
Yeah, that's the point.
His chapter of the story ended when he shot Marlene. That's why you play as Ellie when they're walking at the very end of the game.
No, you play as Ellie when they're walking, you play as Ellie through the DLC follow-up, and now you play as Ellie in the game. It's her story now.
And then another thing.
Yeah. In addition, on that one you mentioned, like, everyone's saying that Joel was just cut out of the story early. No, Joel still serves a part of the story, even after his death.
He has a lot of flashbacks.
You have a lot of flashbacks, and you have
played the game.
Yeah, you would have seen a lot of good flashbacks that flesh out his character. As well as, like, Ellie, he basically lives on through Ellie for better or worse. As you can see that she started to replicate a lot of his actions. and we'll get to that
Plays
too.
guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Then a third thing,
Mm-hmm.
and this one just pisses me off because they are so delusional.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we've seen Joel survive worse, and Joel wouldn't just give his name out. And I'm like, oh, so you just missed the point of this universe. Because this universe is real. This is real life. Joel gets stabbed through the stomach with a piece of rebar and spends 3 months recovering. And it's like, Joel survived worse. I don't think he has survived worse than a shotgun to the leg.
A shotgun to the leg and getting beat in crap with a golf club is a lot worse.
I think that we as a society who view media a lot are spoiled on protagonists who just get up.
Plot armor, yes.
Like if this were The Walking Dead, Ellie would have barged in and killed 2 of them, and then Joel would have stood up.
Just perfectly fine, and just beat him up.
He wouldn't be perfectly fine, but he'd start beating him up. Or
yeah.
And then they'd get him back, and he'd be in the hospital, but he'd come out and he'd have scars. Like, no, this is real life. A shotgun blast to the leg would probably kill a person. And, he's lucky he survived longer than that. They blew out his fucking knee with a shotgun. And also the whole, he would never give out his name like that. Well, I mean,
he'd become humble,
the Joel we see at the beginning of the first game is not the Joel that is even at the end of the first game. And then, sorry.
Add
Joel
4 years on that. Joel changes and then add 4 years
over the course of the first game, and then add 4 years, and he's a different person. He only goes on basic patrols. He only kills infected. He hasn't run into a hostile group in years. The only thing he has to worry about is his relationship with his daughter.
Yeah, this is an example of reasonable character growth. I understand complaining about let's say a really nice guy who saw the good in the worst person ever suddenly trying to kill his nephew in his sleep. That's a weird character growth, but not this. This makes sense.
You're referring to.
No, it's nothing important. Nothing that has the last in it of either. Nothing important. Anyways, moving on. I think it's reasonable character growth for him to become more humble and open to other people and trusting and stuff. It's not and he's not even giving out all his information. He's just trying to be nice and open and everything. Other than that, there's a joke I like to make out of that scene, though. It's a really good joke I like to make out of that scene in which Abby meets Tommy and Joel after they saved her, and it's all I'm Tommy, this is Joel, and then Abby immediately takes him to their hideout and attacks him and shoots and everything, and what if she had the wrong Joel? I just like to think that it's just she just shoots him, just goes Joel Miller, and then he's just who the hell is Joel Miller? I'm Joel Anderson. And she just has to sit there awkwardly oh, this is a misunderstanding. We thought you were
wrong person.
We thought you were another dude.
They bandage up his leg and they send him home.
It's just here, have some ham or something. Just go, forget about this. That would be funny. But no, that's not what happened. It makes sense because they tracked Joel down, so I understand why they knew it was him. I just think it's a funny joke. Either way.
What was I gonna... And then I guess... So we talked about the controversy, right? No, we didn't...
One more thing about Joel's death is that the hypocrisy it brings out. Because I think Abby is just as justified as anyone else in this. Because not only dooming humanity, we already brought up he killed her dad and everything. And no one's thinking about this from perspective. The only reason we and care about Joel is because he's the survivor we happen to be introduced to. There are a lot of people just as bad as him, some even worse. However, if we actually got to know them, we would care about them. Think about it. Imagine if The Last of Us 1 had been from Abby's perspective. You just start the game as Abby after some random bearded maniac killed her dad and doomed all of humanity for the sake of one girl. Then Joel would be the villain and you'd be on Abby's side. It's all a matter of perspective.
It's all about context.
Yeah.
These people don't have because they didn't play the fucking game.
And I feel everyone is just all in all just letting their bias of Joel and how cool he is overshadow the effect that his actions had, and they're not really seeing this from Abby's perspective because A, they're biased, and B, they didn't play the game all the way through. But
And then
yeah.
there's one more side of the controversy that I don't like to I don't even like to think about because it makes me upset. But there's a side of this where it's like the gaming community, or at least the gaming community. I sound like a fucking 50-year-old when I said that. There's a big community of people who think that this game is forcing some kind of agenda.
Oh, the A word.
And because when the leaks came out, the leaks said nothing about Abby's gender identity, but they saw a very buff female, and they said, "Oh, she must be trans."
They just automatically made that assumption and everything.
They just made that assumption, which is wrong. Which is like wrong to jump to that conclusion. But then they took it a step further and said, "Oh, she's trans. They're pushing an agenda." And I'm like, is the mere existence of someone who's different than you pushing an agenda?
Yeah, like this is a big a problem to get off a little out of context.
No, it's fine. I think it has a lot to do with the toxicity of this community.
Yeah, like what I'd say overall is people nowadays act like anything just remotely progressive is automatically pandering and is automatically a death sentence for like media. Like I know people to this day who have refused to see movies like Birds of Prey just because it promotes women power, and I'm like, it's still really good. Yeah, I'm just like, it's really good. Just because it like promotes women power doesn't mean it's like bashing on men. They're just like, no, it's all just for the agenda, and I don't want to see it. And I'm like, you're lost.
People are like, oh, the Disney Star Wars movies failed because get woke, go broke.
No, they failed because the stories were shit.
The Disney Star Wars movies failed because they were written by like a toddler or two toddlers fighting over crayons.
The presence of like strong female characters did not like ruin that. That's not the problem.
Yeah, Rey was not the problem, guys. If you want to talk about a Mary Sue, we'll talk about Anakin. But
you
know what?
That's a whole other thing.
If you want to hear us talk about Star Wars, go a couple podcasts back. We'll talk about it. But yeah, no, it's like I'm fine if you're like, I disagree with the fact that. Hold on, I gotta figure out a way to word this.
Ooh.
I understand if you're like, I disagree with the ideology like that. I disagree with the existence of trans people, but don't go out of your way to think that. No, I'm sorry. If you don't like it, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
It's a whole dark, deep can of worms
it's
right there.
It's so dumb. And I was thinking about this after we recorded. Is that there is a trans character? You know, Lev is a trans character.
Yes,
he's also a straight badass. But if you take Lev being trans out of the game and make a few tweaks, it doesn't really change much. And that just helps the point where it's not really forcing anything. They're just there.
Yeah.
Like Henry and Sam in the last game, they were black. It was not like forcing anything on you.
Yeah.
They were just black. Like, what's the problem?
Again, you can have like progressive elements and not be pandering, and people need to realize that. But
now there is pandering. Don't
of course.
get me wrong. There is a line. Like we look at Marvel's two new superheroes, Snowflake and Safe Space. That is pandering.
I remember that was a big deal when that comic got announced.
That is pandering.
Yeah.
But nothing in The Last of Us 2 points towards pandering. So yes, a lot of the controversy was just I refused to. Oh my god, dude! One of my favorite. So Donkey did a video.
Video game Donkey.
Videos. Yeah, Donkey's so great. He did a first video where he talked about The Last of Us 2 and he said he liked it. And then of course the comment section exploded. And then so the second video he did was purely going through the comment section and refuting their claims.
Oh, I've not seen that video.
It's really great. And then one of the comments was just straight up, The Last of Us 2 supports the homosexual. That's why I'm not play it.
Okay.
So you're just coming out. This is your coming out story.
Okay, fan.
But I guess we should. The point is, a lot of the controversy was misconstrued and stupid, and it's not a good reason to not play the game.
Yeah.
We should move on to the actual story, because the story of The Last of Us 2 is one
really
of the
good.
most complex, well-written things I've ever seen in a video game. But, okay, real quick, I'm sorry.
Mm,
This podcast is mainly about the story of the two games, but real quick, I would like to say that even if you took the story out of the game, even if
mm,
it was horribly written, this is
mm,
one of the most fun games I have ever played.
mm,
They took everything that worked about the first one, all of the traversal, all of the stealth play, and they added on to it. You know, you can
mm,
go. The ability to go prone and crawl on your stomach seems so meaningless, but the addition of it just adds an entire new layer. And now there's like stealth play with swimming and all the environments that we were talking about, and
mm,
it's so perfectly integrated. And it is such a fun game. The sound design, everything's like right up in your face, and they brought back the whole scavenging system. And depending on what difficulty you play it at, it's harder to find stuff and resources. So that makes the gunplay more engaging because you can't
mm,
afford to miss shots. So you're like right there with the character. You're right there with Ellie and Abby. You feel the adrenaline when they feel it, right? It
mm,
is so engaging. And it just, even if the story was absolute dog shit, which it isn't, I would
mm.
still love this game because it's so fun.
Yeah, like so for you guys who just don't like the story, I guess like just skip the cutscenes or something.
Just skip the
I
cutscenes
mean,
and play
that's
the
what I
game.
did with Kingdom Hearts. So yeah, that's
Like
how I
all
got through Kingdom Hearts. To
they
be
could just do
honest.
the final boss and then skip the part where Ellie doesn't kill Abby, and then in their mind
Mm.
Abby dies, and they can be happy. There you go.
Yeah. um. Other than that, back into the story itself, I want to make an
Oh,
interesting parallel because I've
what a
seen
story!
this parallel because I have not seen a lot of people talk about this. But when Joel died, I did not really was not that affected very much by all the outrage because I'd already seen this before in another franchise I am very fond of, Attack on Titan. So first of all, manga spoilers for those of you listening who aren't caught up with like the main story and everything. If you do not want spoilers for the manga / season 4, I'm gonna put a picture on screen, and when that picture disappears, like mute the video till the picture on screen disappears, and you will avoid spoilers, pretty much. Okay, 3, 2, 1. On to the spoilers. So, in Attack on Titan, there's a character named Sasha Blouse. She's a very popular fan favorite character. She has a lot of memes surrounding her and everything. Anyways, in the manga, a new character named Gabby was introduced. And Abby, interesting parallel there. The point is, Gabby ruthlessly just straight up shoots Sasha and kills her in one point in the manga. And everyone in the community just straight up lost it. Everyone was memeing how much they wanted Gabby to just die in the story and everything because they killed their favorite character. Either way, most people were ignoring the fact that the reason Gabby killed Sasha was because Sasha and her friends just got done killing a bunch of innocent civilians from Gabby's hometown. So, she kind of had a good reason to go out and try and kill her. But ignoring that, later in the story, the character of Gabby's accompanied by a kid named Falco, who's her friend. He doesn't matter, but he's there.
Wait, wait.
Yes.
Abby has a kid.
The parallels are lining up. But no. Point is, Gabby and her friend Falco, they're imprisoned for their crime, and so they just stay there. But then they eventually break out, and they find Sasha's family. They meet Sasha's stepsister Kaya, and they pretend to be lost orphans. And Kaya takes her into their family, and Sasha's family has no idea that they are eating dinner with the girl who killed their daughter. Either way, Gabby becomes really good friends with Kaya, and later on, and even though she doesn't want to admit it, and then later on, it's revealed that Gabby is the one who killed Sasha. So of course, Kaya is reasonably pissed and tries to attack Gabby. However, Sasha's father actually holds nothing against Gabby because she understands like where she was coming from, and she knows that she's a good person since they spent time together. So she actually forgives her for straight up killing his like daughter. And even Kaya ends up coming around to still be Gabby's friend, despite the fact that she killed her sister. And the whole point of the story is that people can see eye to eye, despite the fact that they shouldn't, because, if you actually get to know a person, there's more layers than just, oh, they killed someone I cared about. So this person who literally destroyed their family is now like one of their closest friends. And it's a very powerful moment in the story. And it's all about just empathy and whatnot. And it's the exact same lesson here in Last of Us 2. Like, despite the fact that Abby killed Joel, you can actually see eye to eye with her. And that's what we're going to get into, because you actually do play as Abby in the story, not right afterwards, because right after Joel dies, you continue as Ellie for a good chunk of time, and then you get to Abby, and we'll get to Ellie soon. But Abby, honestly, is one of the most interesting characters, like, in this game. Probably my favorite.
Oh,
like,
she's great. And
yeah.
this is an opinion I have that pisses off a lot of my friends that like the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy Abby's story more than Ellie's.
Ooh,
and
right.
don't get me wrong, Ellie's is great. It has some of the best stealth sections and gameplay sections of the game. But it's really straightforward, you know? It's just every different act or every different day, the way it's presented, is just Ellie wakes up. I'm gonna kill a lot of people today, and then she does it. Like, she kills a lot of people. And her story is more, the more people she kills, the more she realizes what she's doing is wrong. And everyone keeps telling her, you need to give up. You can't keep doing this. Dina needs to get home because she's preggers. And Ellie continues to lose herself. So I find it interesting. I made this connection earlier. Ellie, at the end of the game, is where Abby was at the start.
Yeah, pretty much. That's actually a really nice parallel.
Because Ellie literally says the same line Abby does. So throughout the entire game, in Abby's flashback, she keeps going. Like, every time Owen says, you gotta drop it, Joel's not gonna be there when you go, Abby keeps saying, it's a lead. I gotta see it through. And then in the very end of the game, Tommy comes and tells Ellie that he heard that Abby was in California, and Dina's like, don't go. And then Ellie goes, it's a lead. It's a
lead. Like, you see her going down the exact same dark path and everything.
It's a lead. So Abby, her entire story is about moving past the darkness and realizing that the vengeance that she wanted so badly did not cure her, insatiable hunger for justice. And Ellie's is about getting to that point, but it happens in a different way. It's really clever. And I just don't understand why people don't like Abby's story. It's so cool. Like, the first day is pretty straightforward. I'll give them that. Although I really like the section where she almost gets hung, and then you're running through the forest with nothing but a hammer, and beating off the clickers. It's really great. But then the second day is incredible, because you have, like, this really cool action set piece of a skyscraper with a downed crane, and you have to cross the crane, and it's really photogenic and cool, and you're up above the clouds. And
that was awesome. So cool. That was so cool.
I know. And then you go down into the depths of this hospital where, like, they took the first patients when the outbreak started, and you fight, like, an actual honest-to-God boss fight that could come out of, like
this
Dark Souls,
like, super fusion, infected
And
thing.
it's like, that right there was about the most unrealistic a Last of Us story has ever gotten, with that giant monster. But I was so okay with it, because the boss fight is really well presented, because it takes all of the, the adrenaline rush type of, do I have time to heal? Do I have time to craft this thing? And then it puts you right there with a monster that will kill you if it touches you. And I was thinking, I kept trying to do permadeath runs of this game, which is where, like, if you die, the game starts over. And I kept thinking to myself, like, no matter how far I get, that monster is going to kill me. Because it's so hard to beat first try. But yeah, and then the third day, you go to this island where, like, the entirety of downtown Seattle has been overgrown and nature has taken it back, and this religious cult has, like, rebuilt modern, like, not modern, but, like, olden society, archaic society, and the Space Needle is, like, stretching up into the clouds and you could barely make it out. And it's like, I was talking with my friend about this, my friend Luke, and we had both had this moment where we're like, dude, they have a giant cross. That's so cool. And as you get closer, you're like, oh my god, they have the Space Needle.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
It's really, like, clever world design, honestly.
Yeah, it's so good. And everybody's like, no, it doesn't make sense for there to be a religious cult. Because this is the apocalypse. They wouldn't have time to worry about that. And I'm like, well, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. If The Last of Us Part 2 took place, let's say, 10 years into the outbreak, I would be like, yeah, nobody's going to have time for a religious cult. We're still figuring this shit out. But part 2 takes place, what is it, like 33 years
like
in?
25 to 30 years or something like that.
Yeah. Everybody has figured this out. It's a zombie apocalypse.
Like you
And
have like
that's
straight up like that's why the infected are more or less just like a random inconvenience. Like they're not even that big of a
yeah.
deal anymore. It's like
Yeah,
running into like a wolf or something.
the biggest inconvenience is you just go in a building and they're there and you
Yeah,
take them out and
and
you
you just kill them
continue.
and it's just gone.
And
Yeah.
and it like it's presented in such a subtle way that you don't even notice it until we had that discussion. Is that the infected are barely, I don't say barely in the game, but they're not the main antagonist
Yeah,
because
literally like
everyone in this world has gotten used to them.
yeah,
They're
like
not a threat anymore. The I'll put it this way: the point of the first game, or the villain of the first game, was to eradicate the virus. And the villain of the second game is a more grounded story. It's the humans versus the infected. The first game, the villains are the infected. The second game, the villains are the human. Even though there's no real villains in this universe. But yeah,
like you'll just like run into a zombie and then just be like, oh yeah, they're infected in this game. I forgot, but yeah, it's interesting.
Abby's story brought one of the 2 moments that I had where I actually brought tears to my eyes. There's a point. Well, Abby keeps, so both characters have flashbacks, but the way they present it is really cool. Ellie has a flashback every time she goes to sleep. So her dreams are kind of remembering her time with Joel and Tommy before things got bad, before she realized that Joel had lied to her. And Abby's flashbacks all happen within the first day. But every time she goes to sleep, she does have dreams, but it's the same dream. She's in the hallway of the hospital where her father died, and she walks down that hallway, and every time she opens the door, she sees the same like thing. She either sees her father dead or some kind of monstrosity. And it's only after and you realize that those dreams were happening long before she killed Joel, and she thought that killing Joel would make them go away. And then, finally, after you save Lev and Yara, and you come back at the end of day 2, it puts you back in that hallway. And you think when you go down the end of the hallway, it's going to be the same thing.
But
like
it's
you're going to
actually
see the
better.
same. Yeah, you open the door, and your dad turns around, and he's there, and he smiles. And then it cuts to black, and it's like, oh my god. Like, the happiness she was looking for, she found in these 2 kids. It's really, oh man, it's really strong stuff. And I just think that Abby's story has more of those moments that make you reflect on why this character is doing what they're doing. Because we know why Ellie's doing what she's doing. You know? We played the first game. It's really well done. And I gotta applaud Naughty Dog. They made me care about this character, and they introduced her in this game. It's really well done. I didn't think they could do it. Because the only real problem I had with this game, when I first played it, I've done 2 playthroughs now. I finished the other one a couple of days ago. The only real problem I had with this game is that there is a very huge momentum drop. Like, right after you finish Ellie Day 3, and Abby confronts you and points her gun at you, and then it cuts to black. The 30 minutes after that, I was just like, oh, I don't care. But I gotta hand it to them. They really stepped it up. So,
Abby's story as a whole is really good because I thought it was a really good like redemption arc as a whole. You know, again, like I mentioned, she has a very similar parallel to Joel, with her being in a dark place but then finding happiness. With Abby, with Joel, he found it through Ellie. With Abby, she finds it through Lev. They end up becoming a bond, and Abby ends up abandoning her whole like cause. Like Abby is a part of this big like not the Fireflies, but a Firefly like group, the Wolves, and she ends up abandoning them and everything they stand for, and all this whole like big culture war between the Wolves and the Seraphites, just for the sake of Lev, because she realizes that she's not getting any happiness from this whole like extremist movement. Instead, she's just going to go and stay humble and stay with Lev. And it's really good.
Humble.
Other than that, Abby's supporting cast was actually very good. One little detail, a lot of people complained about this, but I actually really liked this choice. The choice in which in Ellie's story, Ellie kills Mel and Owen, and you don't know who, and also the dog Alice, and you just don't care because they're just random characters. But then you play through Abby's story, and as soon as you start it up, like Owen, Mel, and Alice are really important in Abby's story, and you're just sitting there like, oh, I killed these people, indiscriminately.
And for me, having played through it twice, I can really appreciate it playing as Ellie the second time, because once you do it the first time, it happens so how to put this?
Suddenly,
when you're playing as Abby, you killing Mel and Owen and Alice happened so long ago. It happened 10 game hours ago that you don't even think about it. But playing it a second time as Ellie, I'm walking down that hallway. I'm like, oh god, I'm about to kill Alice. I don't want to kill Alice. I love Alice. And then it's like, oh, I'm about to kill Mel. She's pregnant. I don't want to kill Owen. He's like the love of Abby's life. And then you do it, and then Ellie has this visceral reaction. But I kind of experienced that through her because I know these characters now. I played through the game with them.
Overall, just Abby's whole life was actually surprisingly well fleshed out, I'd say. I will say there is that one moment that still shakes me thinking about it. Abby and Owen's a little emotional scene was so I love this story, but I just cannot defend that scene.
I'm sorry. There's some things that I just have a problem with.
Oh my goodness, that scene!
Here's how I look at it. It's very obvious that Ellie and Dina have sex in the game.
They have that moment after they smoke weed or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Smoke weed every day. But it doesn't show them having sex, and because of this, you kind of maintain your respect and adoration for them as a couple. However, on the flip side, I was very pro Abby and Owen, right? They can work it out. They can figure it out. Mel is a bitch. She's the worst. Yeah. But then they had that weird sex scene, and I was like, that was really aggressive.
That was really out of nowhere.
I don't know if that's really the right kind of relate. And it just, I don't know why they felt the need to put that in the game. Did we need to see Abby naked? Did we need to see that? I don't think we needed to see that.
Did they motion capture that scene? Because I know they motion captured a lot of this game.
I hope not.
Oy vey. I don't even want to know who had to go through that.
I'm not slut shaming or anything, but I lose a bit of respect for Abby after seeing her naked. I don't know
it's so
why.
Weird.
It's just I think that they could have done it. I'm not even mad that they showed it.
You could have just had them kiss or something. Yeah.
Sex scenes can be very beautiful when they're filmed and done correctly, but that scene is so uncomfortable. It's really not great.
It spawned a lot of memes. I do love me some memes.
Yeah, those memes.
But I'll post some on screen if I got some. But yeah, that is.
But yeah, weird. That's pretty much my only problem with the game. That and the lack of momentum after you stop playing as Ellie.
In addition to Abby, obviously Lev is is Abby's accompaniment. Lev was a really nice character, I think. At first I didn't really care about him at first, but he is really a badass, like you said. I really liked how he brought, again, he serves a role like Ellie did in the first game, bring in some more of a youthful perspective to the situation. And because of his youth, he still has some remorse and hopeful and faithfulness. And so he helps keep Abby level-headed. The best moment of no pun intended, level-headed. I'm funny. Anyways, the best moment for this, as an example, is when Abby finally finds Tommy, Ellie, and all of them after they killed Mel and Owen. And then Abby is just straight up about to kill Dina, even though she knows Dina's pregnant. So she's pregnant, Abby's just good and about to kill her, and then Lev's no, and Lev really came in for the clutch there and saved Dina's life. really helped keep Abby level-headed. Like, seeing Lev there was a really good moment for Abby to realize, I'm about to go... Like, Abby just right there realized, I'm about to go down the same dark spiral again that I went with Joel. And she doesn't. She lets go and goes with Lev, and that's it. And I thought that was a really good moment. Yeah, other than that, I have some criticisms mainly surrounding Abby's campaign. Mainly that the people, the whole like big war between the wolves and Seraphites isn't really fleshed out, even though that's kind of the whole like crutch of her story. Like, they're just these two big organizations that just kind of came out of nowhere, and they're just fighting. The Seraphites themselves, like the whole religious cult thing, that was an interesting aspect to bring into the world. I think it helped flesh out the world more. You can see how different people are living different lives in this apocalyptic world outside of just hunters. And however, I felt like Lev's story kind of just got cut short. Like, we should have known more about Lev's family more, I think. Like, Lev's mother kind of just dies off screen on accident, and then Yara just kind of dies. And I forgot Yara died. Like, they're just leaving. Like Yara and Lev's mother both die because of Lev. Because remember, like, Lev leaves to go back to the Seraphite Island despite being told not to. And when he confronts his mother, she gets mad at him, and he ends up killing her in self-defense. And then when they are leaving the island, Yara dies. And so both of their deaths are on Lev's hands, and yet that never really comes up. And I felt like they could have done more with that to flesh out Lev's character. But, you know, they just kind of leave it, I guess. I guess they needed an excuse for him to go with Abby. So, yeah. But other than that, this is just a nitpick, but why did they send Mel into a war zone when Mel was, like, super pregnant?
She's a surgeon. I think it's just because she's a surgeon.
That's fair. It's just, like, I don't know why she went into, like, ground zero.
They didn't really expect to get ambushed on the way.
That's fair, yeah, that's fair. Mel was really lucky, you know, to just get away with like a shot wound. But yeah. So with that out of the way, I guess we'll get into Ellie's story. Ellie's story was definitely very interesting to me, mainly because as a start, like, you can see Ellie has definitely grown into a protagonist of her own. Like, they were already sowing the seeds for that in the first game, with her, like, taking care of Joel and being able to fight off that cannibal cult and everything. And now you can definitely see that she's grown into her own type of person. Ellie's whole story is obviously that she's seeking revenge after Joel dies. And it is a very dark but very understandable story, and a very thematic one, if that makes sense. I'm just pulling out all the keywords here to sound as smart as possible. Yeah, as a whole, the first thing I want to touch on is that the game itself really does dive into what Ellie, or what Joel's choice at the end of the game meant. Ellie obviously is very upset about what Joel did. The fact that he, like, stopped them from making the cure and everything, and that plays a really big part in their relationship. However, you can see that Ellie still cares about Joel despite what he did, which is why she's going on this whole revenge crusade for him and everything. However, you can see that she's taken the wrong lessons. Like, she starts to adapt his bad habits about, like, torturing people, mercilessly killing people and everything. And it all really accumulates into a really good scene where she kills Mel and finds out Mel's pregnant and just has a full-on panic attack because she's realizing, like, how far down she's gone. And then that ultimately ends with Abby finding them, but Abby spares their life, and that could have just been it. But then another catalyst comes into Ellie's life, and we'll get to that in a second. Other than that, what else I wanted to touch on is...
I really like... the Mel moment is great, but I think that the moment with Nora is also pretty underrated.
Oh, true.
Where you... And they make the player do it, too. It's like an interactive cutscene, where you force Nora to talk by, like, beating her within an inch of her life, and Ellie is so clearly shaken up by it. Like, the length she has started to go. I really like it. I think that's a great moment. And the lighting of that scene is really well presented, too.
Other than that, the characters in Ellie's story are a very interesting bunch, I'd say. You obviously have Dina, who's her girlfriend. And, I mean, I'll say I didn't really care much for their relationship because Dina kind of just came out of nowhere. But it was still, like, a cute and understandable relationship. I just think it should have been developed more because, again, Dina just kind of popped up in the story. Jesse was a fun tag-along, even though he just fucking dies. Just before a guy gets shot. That's it.
We talked about that. you little bitch. You said you had a problem with Jesse's involvement.
Yeah.
He feels useless. To which I counter, I think he serves as a consequence of Ellie's actions.
True. That's a good point.
And like an added, she's obviously very broken up about Joel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jesse and his death serves as another reminder that what Ellie does is wrong, and it haunts her in the end. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that both Jesse and Dina were good characters, but I would have liked to know them in the first game, maybe, or maybe some form of DLC. But that's just me being wishful.
Other than that, you have that Ellie. Like we said, Ellie's basically going down Joel's arc, but she still has empathy. That's why she's like shaken up anytime she has to do something too heinous. And then you finally like have where she's willing to call it quits, like I said, when Abby tracks them down and spares them. However, she is instigated again by Tommy, who also doesn't really get enough to say about. Like, not enough people acknowledge Tommy's arc in this game. Like, he goes down full darkness.
Yeah, he loses everything.
He straight up is torturing people, sniping people.
He loses his brother.
His wife leaves
which starts
him
down this path. Yeah, and then his wife leads him as a cause of that. His wife was the one thing he had.
He loses his fucking leg. He gets shot in the leg just like Joel was.
Yeah, and he's like a broken, crippled man. And you know what's funny is I'm glad we're doing this recording now because a lot of people want a short Tommy DLC. And initially I was like, no, thank you. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, it would be cool to play as Tommy as he goes after Abby and then have like a 20-minute segment in the end where the controller is kind of restricted and your movement is restricted. Maybe your peripheral vision is messed up to show that he's kind of broken inside.
That'll be interesting.
And yeah, it would. I just don't know if it would work because he doesn't have much to do.
True. But, you know, he represents, like, where Ellie is going in the story. Like, he has, like, reached the full, like, bitter, broken path. And Ellie is well on her way there if she continues. And I thought that was a really nice parallel there. Other than that, I'd say that the best part to continue Ellie's story is obviously with the ending, where it all accumulates.
What an ending it is.
Yeah. One last detail. This is just a nitpick of mine. Ellie's immunity doesn't really come up much in the story, which it's not the focus anymore, but I feel like they could have touched on that at some point.
No, you go.
I don't know. I just feel like it was a really big part of the first game, and they could have like done something.
Once again, you're missing the point,
Fair
my
enough.
sweet friend. Okay, much like with the infected being a minor inconvenience now, Ellie's bite and her immunity is no longer relevant to her. It's symbolic. Well, the fact that she covers up the bite mark and the scar is symbolic of the fact that she's moving on past that point in her life. Joel took the importance of that scar from her, and that's why she covered it up, to try and forget.
That's
and
an
maybe
interesting way of
even
looking
forgive
at
him.
it.
And it's really symbolic, and it does get brought up, but I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. I feel like if it got brought up to anyone other than Dina, they'd be like, okay, yeah, fucking hilarious, ha ha ha, you're immune, ha, good one, because that's how Dina reacts at first. So yeah, I don't know. I think I understand where you're coming from, but I like that the immunity, and I mean, she does get bit in the story.
Oh, true.
It's very minor. It's a blink and you'll miss it thing, but she like lures herself towards a clicker to trap one of the rattlesnake guys in the end. And I don't know, that could have been cut out, but whatever. She gets bit.
Either way, we come to the ending in which Ellie throws away everything just to get revenge on Abby. Like, Tommy finally like tells her what's going on, and like Dina's all like, "If you like go after this, we're not waiting. Like, I'm not waiting for you anymore." And Ellie still goes after this for the sake of like getting rid of those like nightmares she has.
I love the way that this game portrayed PTSD. Just like if you go through Ellie's notebook, and one thing I haven't really talked about is Ellie's notebook and the significance it plays if you read through it, like the poetry she writes. But you can flip through her notebook and she has like drawings where she tries to doodle. She tries to doodle Joel. She tries to doodle Abby, but she can never get the eyes right. So their eyes are always scratched out. And she has poetry, but she keeps scratching out the lines. And the pages are wet because they're soaked with tears. But if you read through the journal at the end of the story on the farm, it's like she can't sleep, she can't eat, her skin burns. Every time that she goes a day without thinking about Joel, she hates herself for it. And she hates herself for not being able to move past, but she also hates herself for even wanting to. And I love the way that it portrays PTSD, because after the adrenaline rush of her adventure has died down, she can't forget. And that's why she goes after Abby. That's why she lets go of everything to go after Abby, because she hopes that maybe she'll finally be able to rest. And you can see it too.
Yeah, and she even says it to Dina. She's all like, "I can't stop thinking about Joel and everything, and I have to end this."
And you can see it in Ellie's character model. She is visibly thinner and emaciated
and covered in scars,
malnourished, and it's really kind of saddening. So I hate that she leaves Dina. I hate that she throws everything away, but I understand it.
Which comes obviously the moment like she ends up saving Abby, ironically. Abby and Lev from what would have most likely been their deaths. And just as they're about to leave, she has that one last like PTSD like flashback to Joel, God. And she's all like, "I can't let you leave," and I'm all like, shit.
I applaud this game for many reasons. Before I get into why I applaud this game, I played this game at like 2:30 a.m. I finished it at 2:30 a.m. my first playthrough, and I'm leading Abby to the boats. And you're like, as the player, you're like, oh my god, she can't, right? She won't do it. She wouldn't. But then you put your backpack in, and you get that last, like, that little flash of Joel, and you know what's coming. And you're like, oh shit, here we go. But I applaud this game, because never, not once have I played a video game and I got to the final boss and I was hesitant. Because God of War is my favorite game of all time. Fantastic game. Amazing story. But when I get to the final boss, I'm like, oh my fucking god, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to fuck him up. I'm going to use all these skills. I'm going to beat his ass. Like, literally, there's a point where you're just mashing buttons, smashing his face in. And I was like smiling. Like, yes, I'm Kratos. But with this game, every cut that you deal to Abby, and every punch that she gives to Ellie, it makes me cringe, because I've spent 30 hours with these characters, and I love them both, and I know why they're fighting. I know that both of them needs to win. Ellie needs to win so that she can sleep. Abby needs to win so that Lev can live. And it's like, it's such a great moment, because you don't want either of them to win, but you don't want either of them to lose. And I've never had that in a game. And then Abby goes all Gollum on Ellie and bites her fingers off.
God damn.
And then, it's just. But yeah, I really have to applaud this game for making me care about its protagonists. Or I don't even know if you can call them protagonists. I guess the whole point is that there are no real heroes or villains. But yeah, the final boss of this game tore me in two. And it leads me into my next point, because, you can't talk about this fucking game without talking about how angry people get at it. For some reason, the people who hate this game get super angry that you play through the entire thing and you don't even kill Abby.
I've seen that complaint a lot. Like, everyone's like, the journey wasn't worth anything. And I'm like, no.
To that I say, you are missing the entire point of the game.
Yeah.
The game is not it's not a story about revenge. It's about forgiveness. And if you can honestly tell me that you played all 30 hours of the story and you got to that point and you still wanted Abby to die, well then I just gotta say, see a therapist, man. What the fuck? you got some issues with letting things go.
Like, at that point, you understand both Ellie and Abby so well, you don't want either of them to die or live, or to die, basically.
Yeah, to die or live.
Neither, somewhere in between.
So yeah, I love that she doesn't kill Abby, and I love that it's all because of Joel. Because so this donkey video that I was talking about earlier, there's something he brings up. There's two things he brought up, that I didn't even think about. But when Ellie is strangling Abby, she's about to kill her. Abby's giving out, but then there's a flash, just a flash of Joel on a porch, and he smiles. He's like smiling at Ellie. And that's the first time Ellie has thought of Ellie has thought of Joel without without that image of his head caved in and his final breaths. And she gets off of her, and she starts sobbing, and then she says, "Just go, take him." And everybody is like, "Oh, that's so sweet." She says, "Just take Lev." But I through that video, I realized she's not talking about Lev. She doesn't care about Lev. She's saying, take this memory of Joel. Take him away from me. Let me move on. Just take him. You win. And it's so devastating. And she finally realizes that through this quest where she thought she was holding on to him, she has lost him. And she gives him up. She says, take him. And then when she gets back, she picks up the guitar that he gave her. And the only remaining connection she had to Joel was the fact that she could play his guitar. And
now she can't, because she's lost her fingers.
She's lost her fingers. And like, you try to play the same song, but it keeps like plinking and plunking, and you're missing chords. And you realize that through this quest of her trying to hold on to Joel, she lost the only connection she had. And that's the second time I cried. Like, I was like, when she just puts it all down, she leaves it all behind, and she goes.
Yeah, like by the time she gets back to that house, Dina is gone with the baby, and she's already lost everything. So now she leaves the guitar back there, and she's going off to try and find her way through life. Maybe she'll get back with Dina. Maybe she'll find a new place to stay.
And I like that it's open-ended. I like that a lot of people want there to be a part 3, and to that I say, okay, I'm fine with part 3, but Ellie's story is done.
I mean, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes like drama going on with the studio and stuff, so who even knows if we're getting a third game at this point. But either way, we don't need one, I think.
Ellie's story is done. No more Dina, no more JJ, no more Ellie. The interpretation of how her story ends is up to the audience. I would like a third game as Abby and Lev. I'm intrigued by their characters. I would love to play as Lev. He's a little badass. But yeah, no, the ending is so poignant and so profound, and it just gets me every time I think about it, man. And like I said, I finished this game at like 2:30 in the morning, and I crawled into bed, and I just didn't sleep for like an hour and a half, because I was just thinking. I was running through the entire game over and over in my head, and it's just so good. Oh, man.
Obviously, like, as we can see, like you said, Ellie's story like ends where Abby's began. Basically, Abby ends up finding her way like away from all the hate and pain, and ends up just finding a new life and finds forgiveness. Ellie does at first.
Ellie loses it because of that.
Yeah, and then she ultimately finds a way to just move on at the very end. And we don't know what happens to her story after that, but it's left open to interpretation. And that pretty much wraps up the big narrative of this game. Like you said, it is not a story about revenge. It is a story about forgiveness and overcoming your lust and hate with revenge. And I think it tells that very beautifully. Because you can easily just say, oh, revenge is bad. Don't do that. Revenge is not the Jedi way. But no, this actually really like goes into it and makes you feel for these characters. Like I said, it does exactly what the first game did in making you like characters you should hate. I think, good characters who aren't necessarily good people. And you really feel for them by the end of it. A lot of people are saying that it's bad because it's depressing, This game is so sad. Everything you know and love is dead.
Oh,
it's sad.
Shut up and go play
that's
COD.
What I say.
Go play COD.
What I say is, not every story... I was going to be cynical and say not every story has to be Marvel, like an elitist film enthusiast. But no, it's fine. I like Marvel.
Well,
okay?
I wrote a paper
but not every
on this.
Story, not every story has to be
I wrote a paper on this a couple of weeks ago about why happy endings, while, you know, it was about a book I read.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the whole statement is the best ending is the one where the protagonist doesn't get everything they wanted, but they get what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just something about that. Something about, that not every story has a happy ending. Not every story is going to wrap it up all too sweet like that.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, not every story has to just be a happy-go-lucky, happy ending. If anything, this game is more of a story than the last one. Because, like, the first game is a straightforward story that doesn't ask questions, just gives you the simple, straightforward narrative. This game actually challenges you. It brings in new ideas. And, I mean, I get some people don't like that, but you should be more open to these ideas.
Here's what we said.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my big takeaway. Here's why I quote-unquote shit on the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The second game invites discussion. We've been talking about the second game for about an hour and a half now.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one is very short and to the point.
Yeah.
And I think I figured out, me personally, I think I figured out the reason everybody hates, not everybody, a lot of people hate the second one, but also love the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna do something I hate. I'm gonna bring up Joker.
Oh, joy.
The film Joker.
One of these days we're going to review it because we bring it up in like every episode. But continue.
It's of my mindset that Joker is not a great movie. It is a pretty blatant copy of a lot of other good movies with a DC brand of paint. But the reason so many people like it is because the only thing to see in theaters nowadays is Marvel movies and DC movies and superhero movies, where you don't have to do much thinking. You just go in and you sit down and you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, like the general blockbuster and everything.
I think with Joker, people went in and they actually had to think about it. And even though it had very little substance and it was very fake deep, they still loved that. They loved being intellectually stimulated, so they thought that it was the best thing they'd ever seen. Let's flip that to The Last of Us. The Last of Us was at the time intellectually stimulating and very fake deep, and people loved that. But then Last of Us 2 came out, and they had to think about it too much, and there was too much. It had too much to say for them, and out of that came, oh, you're pushing an agenda on me. You're trying to make me think. You're trying to make me feel bad about these things that I have no control over. I'm like, well, that's the point. You, the player, should not feel bad because you're playing the game and making Ellie do these things. You should feel bad for Ellie and for Abby. But also, there's this one thing that really bums me out, or really pisses me off. When the game first came out, there was this one thing. It was like, The Last of Us 2 forces you to murder a dog and then play with the very same dog hours later. And they were like, you have to kill Bear the dog to progress in the story, and then you play fetch with him as Abby. And I was like, that's bullshit, because both times I've played the game, I didn't kill Bear.
Ooh.
Like, you can do the entire stealth section by just hugging the wall and finding the exit, and you don't have to kill that dog. And that's the thing. It's like, I think people are just looking for reasons to hate it.
Yeah, like, I understand, like, controversies and having a problem with films. Like, The Last Jedi is probably the other, like, big example of there ever being big controversy for something like this with, like, media. And trust me, I have a lot of problems. I don't hate nearly as much as everyone. I think that has some good parts, but overall, it's not that good. We can discuss this later. I have a whole script I'm writing about this that I'll do someday. Point is, I understand being on this whole, like, controversy hate bandwagon, but in this case, I don't really think it's as justified, and I think most of it's just coming from out of context leaks. And I don't know why it's still being held up to that standard now that the game's actually out. Like, people aren't actually trying it.
Because the controversy went away, but then it got nominated for Game of the Year. And I'm sorry,
yes.
anybody who's listening, I hate to be that guy. This isn't even me being biased. It's gonna win. Like, let's look what it's up against. It's up against Animal Crossing, Doom Eternal, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and then Last of Us. Like,
the only one, not necessarily bad games, but not as good as this one.
The only one that has any possible chance to contend
is Animal Crossing, of course. Yes, Animal Crossing.
It's Ghost of Tsushima, and even then, Ghost of Tsushima is way too long for what it tries to do. So I'm sorry, but Last of Us 2 is going to win. If it doesn't, I will be thoroughly surprised.
You want to make a bet on it? Like, what will you do if it loses?
No, not at all, because because the last bet I made, I lost like $100.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, but let's continue.
All right. As a whole, we've already gone over the whole lessons and whatnot, and I think like obviously we find with every movie or video game or whatever we cover on here, we try to take a lesson from it, a facet of filmmaking or storytelling. For the case of these games, I think the lesson of the first one is how to make bad people into good characters. You know, like how to really take that idea of a morally flawed protagonist and make you like them. You know, that's why I like characters like Light Yagami from Death Note. Although Death Note is an example of an like objectively evil story. Like the main character in that story is the villain, while in this story, Joel in The Last of Us 1 is not a villain, but he's not a good person, and yet you still like sympathize and understand him. And I think that game really did a good job of helping you do that. Obviously, it has the benefit of being a game instead of a movie, so since you're playing as this character, you feel more like this character and understand them more than if you were just watching it, which I think is a really clever way to utilize the game formula. With The Last of Us 2, obviously on a thematic level, being how to recover from loss, how to forgive, and how to move on. And how to understand people how to understand different perspectives. It builds on top of that whole make bad people into lovable characters thing. Which is why, maybe I'm looking too deep into this, this is why I think the game is called The Last of Us Part 2 and not The Last of Us 2. It is a continuation of the same narrative from The Last of Us 1, as opposed to being a follow-up story that just takes place in the same world, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, it's basically just part 2 of the same story you were playing before. It just expands on everything, as opposed to just being a follow-up sequel. Which I thought was interesting. Other than that, yeah, give this game a shot. I understand if you gave into the outrage, but honestly, if you have not played this game and you've just been ignoring it because of the outrage, give it a shot. It's worth it. If we can't convince you, try it for yourself, I'd say. And for now, I guess we'll just wrap up with some conclusive thoughts. The first one being, a TV show is on the way from the same guy, Neil Druckmann, who's behind the game. He's going to be working on the show. Any thoughts on that? Any big thoughts?
I
understand.
I don't want this game to turn into a franchise, man. I
understand.
I don't want this to be the next big thing. Like, not everything has to be a fucking cinematic universe with TV shows and movies and games, man. Mm-hmm. I don't get the point. Like, they're going to... it's confirmed that they're just telling the same story of the first game.
So what's the point? Just watch the cutscenes.
What's the point?
I will say, I can understand this one to a degree, because, I am all against adaptations. You will catch me always hating on the newest live-action remakes and reboots and whatnot. However, in this case, I think there's actually a chance for this one, because, I think this will help get people into the story of The Last of Us who aren't necessarily gamers. Like just people who like shows and whatnot will be able to experience the story. And The Last of Us, unlike many other games, is a very story-centric game that could work as a show more than other ones, I think. I think the gameplay... yes?
You know what would be really funny? I just thought of this. Is what if the entire show is just a ploy to force all the haters to watch The Last of Us 2? Like, what if it starts with Joel dying? And
that would be amazing.
Entire, what if the entire first season is just flashbacks in between 1 and 2? So I have to watch it. Just Neil Druckmann saying, "Yeah, fuck you guys." That'd be cool.
That would be nice. Oh my goodness! But
that's basically my only thoughts. I don't really see the point in making it, but I'll watch it because I really like this franchise. Mm-hmm. I just called it a franchise.
I will say that, again, I'm against adaptations, but this one of all has probably the best chance out of most others. And hey, at least the showrunner, at least the original creators, are involved, unlike that Netflix Last Airbender thing that's going down. So, hey, better than nothing, I guess, if you have the actual supervision. Ooh. Other than that, I have another joke I wrote down. Why do characters keep falling off of things? In both of these games, as you're just walking across like some ruins or stuff, a bridge or the ground will just fall out underneath you. Then you'll get ambushed by like some infected or something.
Oh, you don't know?
It happens like 20 times. What is
you don't know?
No, I do not.
That's the Naughty Dog formula, my friend. Have you ever played any Uncharted game?
Some of Uncharted, yes.
Okay, so fun fact. That's how they load the game.
Ooh.
Like that. So as you're walking, the game will load underneath you, and like the scripted little cutscenes is how they load the next section of the game.
That is interesting.
But seriously, dude, like, Uncharted is all about climbing, and 1 out of 4 things that you put your hands on breaks under you. It's something you just get used to. One trope that I hated from The Last of Us, both games, is the looks like we'll have to go around trope. Like you're going somewhere.
That happens a lot, yeah.
Like,
it's just like,
you're going
oops,
somewhere
it's blocked
and
by
like,
a bunch of rocks. Guess we'll go around.
So
no, an infected.
You're going somewhere, it's like, oh, there's water here, and Ellie can't fucking swim.
Yes, we gotta go around.
But yeah, that's basically all I have to say on that.
And so I guess that would wrap it up.
Yep.
Recommendations?
Right, well, The Last of Us.
Well, I mean, other than the media we're discussing, I guess. Anything media related?
I got nothing. I've been playing. I went on a gaming hot streak recently. I picked up Death Stranding, which is another really good artsy game that a lot of people hate.
Well, I mean, would that be your recommendation?
That's my recommendation. Go check out Death Stranding. It's not a story that will spoon feed you. Do not expect to understand what's happening. Just like, this is one of those, we're gonna throw them in the deep end of the pool and they will figure it out or they'll drown.
Nice.
But it's really good. It's really fun. But your recommendation, please.
My recommendation is a TV show called The Shivering Truth. It is screwed up, and I love it. It is on Adult Swim. It is a stop-motion miniseries. It is weird. It's like TVMA. It's a very dark, cryptic show. It doesn't really have a plot. It's just random weird things, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's just creepy and weird, but it has a lot of dedication put into the animation, and it has some really over-the-top symbolism and poetry to it. So if you're just into a weird,
I'll check it out.
Yeah, if you're into a weird experience that you will not understand at all, but you'll still enjoy, if you're into stuff like that, give it a watch. Anyways, I don't know if we'll do video game. Will we do video games in the future? Who knows? Like, I don't know if there's any big story.
I'd like to. If there's another Last of Us, we could cover Cyberpunk.
Ooh, that
if it ever actually comes out.
True. But yeah, I guess we'll keep an eye out for that TV show. See how that goes.
Yeah.
Or we can just review Logan. That movie is pretty much The Last of Us. When you stop and think about it. But yeah.
All right. Well, if that's all we got, then I will sign off.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.